This is activity 1 of the community meetup. Hopefully you've done some community prep work, thinking about community, maybe in your program teams, you've even discussed the different sorts of communities you belong to. So we're going to go on activity 1. What are you going to do in this meetup activity? Well, I'm way too big there. There we are, even better. Okay, so what we're going to do in today is you're going to begin thinking about your own values and the things that you value in the teams, or in this case, the community team, this meetup team that you're working with. What do you think must be the important values? Now, obviously, they may be driven by your personal values, but what are the important values of a team? So what do we stand for? What's important to us? And then what you're going to do is take some of those values and turn them into behavior. So the purpose is to try and think about taking something like an abstract concept and turn it into something concrete, which is a good academic skill as well, to think about what these things mean and what they actually look like in reality. And then the other thing that I'd like you to try and think about is how working apart together works. So we're going to do a little bit of an activity where you're all in teams, but maybe just doing your own thing, and then you're going to come back together and discuss what you did. So instead of just straight into a big discussion, one good way of working online is not always just to be working face to face and talking, but maybe getting on with some work. And if you want to ask questions, you can, in the same way as you would around a table or around a desk. So you might be getting on with a bit of work, but if you stand up and say, actually, anybody got questions with this, or I need a bit of a break, I'm going to have a cup of coffee. Those kind of things quite useful in an online space. How we can try and use these online spaces to mimic the not necessarily face-to-face, the physical space. We take the online space and we replicate the physical space. So we're going to try a bit of that today. And the other thing I want to try and do is work on a shared OneNote notebook. So we're just going to give that a go. You may have had some experience with OneNote before, but we'll work through it in this short video. So you're going to put that into your space and you're going to see how you might be able to work together on a OneNote page. So what are you going to do? Well, individually, you're going to spend about 4 minutes. Now, if you want, you can put a timer on. You can put it on your watch or on your phone, or even have an online timer on the screen in your Teams page during your meetup if you want to, so you all can work together. But when you've got that timer, just look over the list of values, and that's on the meetups page, and it will look a little bit like, where is it? This. So it's going to look a bit like this, which is a list of all sorts of different values, things that people find important. Now, they're all, worthy things. But what you need to do is try and say, which are the most important to me in terms of working as a team. So what do I think the 8 values, try and from that long list, choose 8 values that I think are really important. The others are probably important, but these are central that I think are really important when we work together as a team. And particularly this team. This team is slightly different from other teams. So think about this team. And what you're going to do is create a shared notebook and put your choices in there. Then what you're going to do is maybe discuss. So that's the bit of working alone. So you're going to be studying it, and then you're going to start working alone on these shared notebooks. And then you're going to come together, so arrange a time, say, well, should we check back in at, I'm going to be here anyway, all those kind of things. And then think about, okay, what does everybody put? And then say, what do we think would be the top 5 for our group? So you do a bit of work alone, and then you're going to put those top 5. What are the things that we value most? Then what I want you to think about, what behaviours would demonstrate these values or maybe breach these values? What would that look like in concrete values? And so therefore, we want to try and begin to turn that into a meaningful sentence. So we begin to say, these are the core things that we value in some concrete terms. I'll go through an example what it might look like in a minute. So tips, well, why don't you start with the ones that you think are the most important and then start prioritizing. So just dump all the ones that you think are important, and then you say, okay, which of these are most important, and then how do I start doing the kind of my top 8, and then we need to kind of think about this final 5. The final 5 don't necessarily need to be in an order. So, you don't need to say this is our top value followed by this, this, and this. You can just say these are our top 5 of equal importance because, they're all valuable. And again, maybe try and think of concrete behaviours before focusing on the meaningful sentences. So try and think about, what does that actually look like? What are the range of different things that this could look like in terms of this value, in terms of teamwork, and how do we then begin to put that into a meaningful sentence? So this isn't necessarily going to be easy, but hopefully you'll have a discussion around values, what it means to be part of a community, what it means to be part of this team, what are the things that are important to you in this team, and try and have some kind of agreement around that. You can make some shifts and rifts. You can do some variations. You can have other values. If there's something that's not on that list you think is really important to you, just add it. You know, that's not a kind of finite list of values. And if you want more than 5, if you end up going, we want these 6, that's fine. It's your team. These are your values. Go for it. So do your own, what you want to do there. And just another thing you might want to play around with, if you're working alone but together, maybe put some shared background music on so you get even more of a sense of space and place where you're working together. So someone decide, and I've put some links into some sort of study music, but you can choose whatever music you might want to work to. Now that could be different and independent, or you can have someone in the meetup just quickly share their screen and their audio and just put it on. So while you're working together, you all know that you're listening to the same thing at the same time. That could just be something from YouTube or from Spotify or from whatever you want to put your music on and play together. So just, you know, that's just an idea of a variation that you might have. When you're discussing it, make sure it isn't just a dominant person, as always speaking. Remember, going back to those rules of what makes a successful team, try and let everybody have the opportunity to speak. So go round and maybe get people to talk through what they've put. Trying to agree can be challenging, and embrace this challenge and just be kind to each other and kind of don't just try and persuade someone that they're wrong and you're right. Try and learn from others' positions. Try and think, what is it? Why do they think that's important? And actually what you might find is the values that you think are important, maybe they sound different, but the concrete behaviours are quite similar. And so you might call it one thing, they might call it something different, but that's okay. So have a big discussion. Remember, the other thing, these are team values, not just personal values. So they're not just the things that are important to you, although they should be important to you. It's about how you function as a team, not what you want everybody to be like in society or what you think is really important. This is like, what do we think is important within this team? What do we care about within this team? So let's just show you what that might look like in terms of doing a OneNote document. So I said one of the purposes is to work together on a OneNote document. So hopefully you're in your team. So you're in one of these teams, whichever team you're in. I'm just going to start in a different team today. And it's always important to remember, if you go into your team and they're not there, if they've never been there, just a quick tip, choose another team and just send a message and say, can I join you because no one's here today? I wouldn't mind just carrying on this activity and just getting to know some different people. So you could just temporarily join a different team, or you could collectively go and join, for longer term, go and stay with a different team if your team hasn't been working for you. So anyway, let's hope they're all working very well. And actually one of the purposes today is to try and think about, you've worked together a bit over last week. You've got to know each other a little bit. So now we're trying to begin thinking about how do we work as a community. And as you've seen in the previous video, that's the purpose of today's session. So how do we set up a OneNote and work together apart? So the most straightforward way is to go into Files and set up a new, in this case, OneNote. So I'm going to call this, because a number of these activities are about the same thing, I'm going to call it Charter. We'll come back to this in the other activities. So we're creating a charter. You may not have seen OneNote before. I'm not going to go over lots of details about OneNote, but one thing to mention, if I can move myself to this corner now, is that up here, let's just do it like this. Up here are sections, and you'll notice there's a section, and there's a page. Imagine this like a notebook with some sections in your notebook, and each section has a number of pages, and this is just one notebook. So we could set up a section, which our first one is about values. If I can spell. Neither of those things. Values. Right. So I've set up a section of values, and we might have a page which is our shared values. And this might be one that we put in our final section. And we might put a page for each person's values. So I might put up a page which is just Paul's values. And so you could each individually, and you can work on this collectively. So we might have Tom's values. For some reason this is not syncing, we should be able to get there. But you should be able to see this emerging collectively. And people can put their different values, and we might put a kind of, so let's someone else's, Janice's values. And so what I'll be doing is looking on my list, and I think it's really good to have fun. So I'm going to put that in my values, and so just click anywhere below, and then I can start typing my values from this list. And I think it's really important to strive for peace or caring, and these are the ones that are really important to me. And then I can play around with these and decide which ones work for me. And then when we have a discussion, we can go back and add the ones that we think are important. In this section is our shared values. So each one has our own values, and this is our shared values. So we can each work on these separate things. Now you can also format and everything, and we could put some different sections, as will be in these other activities. So that's our shared OneNote. And so I can be working on my values, Tom can be working on his values, and Janice can be working on her values together in this OneNote, but apart. So we're just working. We might put on some music in the background and just be kind of Tom's values. And I might say, you know, as I'm going through, and say, I don't really know what, you know, privacy might look like, or what would it look like to have sanctuary? What does that mean in terms of a team? And so we might have a little discussion about that, and we go, okay, right. And then back to some work. So you can see how you work together yet apart. The other thing that you might want to choose to do just quickly, so we've got that, and that's just in our files. But as you've learned last week, you can play around with this. This can be your space. So one of the things we can do is we can add a link to that just up here. So when we go in, we can immediately have our not just in the files, we might put other files in here, but this may be really important to us. So what I'm going to do is go into the add in a tab, and I'm going to go to add OneNote. Now I've set up my OneNote, it's this one here. So I'm going to save that. I'm not going to post to the channel, and save that up here. So now this is immediately goes straight into my OneNote. So you can see here, these are the posts and chats. We might be meeting, so we click on meet. There's all the different files, including that OneNote. And here's, in some ways, a direct link to that. So we can directly go in to our shared values. So when we kind of work, and later on you'll see, we're going to set up a development of values and behaviors and, you know, a team charter. So, and I can kind of look in here at all the separate things and add and edit and all of those sorts of things. So you get the idea of how those OneNote works. Let me move myself over here. That hopefully gives you a sense of this activity. I hope that is clear of how you do that. Rewind the video if you need to work out how to actually do that, if you want to go over it again to see what I clicked. But good luck with deciding on the values that are important to your team. I hope you get some good learning out of it, and I hope it is meaningful and helps define your team as a community. Have fun.